Elizabeth, unmute yourself. Uh,
Yeah, that was great. Thank you,
oh my
Rachel.
God. I mean, you were
As a,
just,
as a fellow biohacker, I was like, yes, 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 yes.
yeah.
And yes, I co-sign the Aura Ring. It's spelled Oura, and it's great for tracking sleep. It's great for tracking, like she said, a day that you can exercise harder, or a
Mm-hmm.
day that you maybe want to back off your exercise and just walk that day, or do some qigong, do some
Mm,
light stuff. And it's fascinating. I love tracking what's happening with my system because it just
mm,
helps me optimize how I show up to my clients, how I show up to
right.
something like this. And I love having that data. And I've done a
Mm.
biome test too. Those are great as well.
I saw you nodding like, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. I've
yeah.
been following data
Yeah.
for like at least 5 years. I mean, I belong to the Upgrade Labs here in Santa Monica. I mean,
Oh,
I'm all about
great.
it.
Great,
Yeah.
great. As I'm
Yeah.
sitting here
I
like,
own a hyperbaric chamber. I actually have a hyperbaric chamber that I bought before surgery.
wow.
You don't have to own one, just go to a facility. But I knew I was going to have two hip replacements 2 years in a row, and I knew I was
Mm,
going to want to have it for anti aging. So instead of renting it, I bought it, and it
okay.
lives right behind my desk, right there.
Okay, we'll have to get into that in the round table. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So we're gonna have to get into the round table. So I know today, will you tell us about you, what you do, and who, what you're seeing now? And I think we're gonna talk about into, power shifts into creating nourishing, happy relationships now. So
Yeah,
welcome. So introduce yourself and tell us who you serve and what you do, and say hello.
awesome. Yeah, I'm Marie Elizabeth Molly, and I have a licensed acupuncturist background. But what I noticed over the years of working with clients was how central to our health relationships are.
Mm.
So many studies have been done about how relationships relate to our longevity, they relate to our health. We actually, when we live in a high conflict environment, it actually suppresses our nervous system. So, especially right now during the pandemic, if you can imagine, all these people suddenly are at home together. Maybe they had space during the day, but now they don't anymore because they're both working from home and they're homeschooling the kids. And life has really shifted significantly for a lot of people. And so it's become even more important than before to learn how to navigate stress with one another, to learn how to have clean conversations, clear conversations, how to self regulate emotionally so that we're not dumping all our unprocessed stuff on the people around us. And so I wanted to talk about several shifts that we can make right now, today, starting right now in our relationships to have them be more health promoting instead of health hurting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can relate to that. Once you said like don't you want to clear your emotional baggage so you don't dump on other people. I was like, that's really I'm sure a lot of that's going on now with
A lot.
a huge shift. I mean, it goes on anyways, but I'm sure it just doubled, tripled up with this last year, and then it becomes hard to break that habit. So can you? I mean, because you're just like dumping it everywhere. So let's talk about it. Let's get in there. Let's get into those powerful shifts so we can do.
Well, shift number one
Mm-hmm.
is to start asking more clearly for what you want. Because what I find a lot is, and this happens a lot for women bodied people, is we often don't go directly. First of all, a lot of us have trouble even discerning what we want because we've gotten so habituated to meeting the needs of everyone around us that it's hard to even feel our own needs anymore. So the first step before you even start asking for what you want is actually asking yourself, what do I want? And prioritizing feeling into what that is just for you. And if that's hard to do, if that feels selfish or guilty in some way, I want you to consider what I said before, which is you showing up happy with your cup full and excited to see the people you love benefits them. And a big part of what helps you show up that way is by asking for what you want and having your needs met and putting your own needs on the same table as everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Because there can be this perception that our needs are less important. And I just disagree.
And and the first thing that comes up for me is what I hear from women many times, like you said, I don't even know what I want or know what I need. So
Yeah.
how can we, and as a coach, if you ask a question, they say, I don't know. It's kind of like for us, it's like, why are you giving me your power? Let's get into your power, right? Let's get into your voice. Let's talk, so how can we get there? How can women get there?
To feeling what they want?
Yeah.
Your body is a big clue. So as you go through the day, this isn't something that happens in the abstract. I think we also sometimes get into this idea that we have to absent ourselves from our lives to feel. And I'm a big proponent, I teach all my clients to stay connected with themselves and feel throughout the day. Don't disconnect and put all your attention on everybody else. And then you have to carve out a little half hour for yourself at the end of the day where you get to be in the tub and that's all you get. From my perspective, really, you deserve to have your whole day be pleasurable. It's not that you never do things that are not enjoyable. I mean, somebody has to clean the toilet and sometimes that person is you. But if you can focus on how your body is feeling throughout the day, notice what has you feel lit up and excited and what makes you contract. So be like a researcher of yourself. Get curious. And like, oh, when I drink this tea that's supposed to be really good for me, but tastes like crap, like what happens in my system? Oh, I actually feel worse because I don't like it. Well, then don't drink the tea. Like there are 10 other teas that might be better for you that your system lights up and goes, yum, I love this, right?
Yes.
So you deserve to drink a tea that tastes good, even if the prevailing wisdom says, oh, you should drink this tea. So that's just a simple example, but really you can apply this to so many things, meditation. I notice this a lot, right? I've been meditating for 30 years, but not everybody's really suited to sitting meditation. And so I really explore with my clients because even though my focus is relationship, I do, because I have a health background, I often get into really navigating how to optimize their nervous system so that they can show up better in the relationship. Because if they're under duress and, totally traumatized and socked in under anxiety or stress or overwhelm, you can say all the right things to your partner, but it's not going to feel good because you don't feel good. So anyway, that's an aside. Coming back with meditation, it's important to find out what type of meditation suits you best. Maybe you're better suited to Qigong, like a moving meditation, or yoga or some kind of dance meditation than sitting. Not everyone's super suited to sitting meditation, even though I love it. So that's another example. So get curious, I would say, is the first thing. Find out what lights up your body and what shuts it down. And a great indicator for this, especially those of us who are women, is what happens in our genitals. Are you turned on? Does something turn you on? Do you feel a pulsation or a fullness or some kind of yes? Our pussies are like an operating system. They're like a GPS that can help show us what excites us and what doesn't. And it's really at the core of who we are, those of us who own pussies. It's a really useful system.
Yes.
Barometer type of system to help us understand, oh, I like this. Oh no, this shuts me down. Then from there, you can start asking for more of the things that light you up, choosing to do more of the things that light you up, and asking support for the things that shut you down. Maybe I had a client discover this just a few weeks ago. She was dreading having to clear out the spare room of their house because they had a Peloton that was arriving. And I broke it down for her, how to do it in a very simple way. And it still wasn't happening. And I was like, what if you just ask your husband to help you with it? And then I was like, what if even more, better yet, you ask him to do it? Like, would that be within the realm of possibility for you to give that to yourself? And she had this profound realization that she was assuming that the things she didn't like doing were the same things that he didn't like doing. But she was wrong about that because he actually really enjoys tidying up. And especially if he knows it's going to make her feel good. So she asked him to help her with the room. And after about half an hour, he was like, you know what? Why don't you just go take care of the kids, do something else? I'll finish it. And he just did it like that because he likes doing it. So all that to say, I think there are times that we choose to do too much, or we choose to not ask for help because either we assume the other person doesn't like it either, or we think we have to do it all ourselves to be worthy of love. Comes up a lot. And I invite you to be uncomfortable and ask for more support and ask for more help and ask for, just like another client of mine with 2 little kids, if she likes to sleep in, and ever since she had kids, she can't sleep in. And she said, you know what? I would be such a nicer person if I got 1 morning a week to sleep in. So now she gets Saturday morning. Her husband takes the kids. She comes out of the bedroom like, hello, I have arrived, because she's had time to herself. And it makes her a happier person throughout the week. And her husband's happy to give that to her. And it benefits the whole family. So that's step 1, is feel what you want and ask for it.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to something you said at the very beginning, which is what I think, is that women think they need to just go and give themselves a half hour at the end of the day. I'm like, that is mind blowing to me, because to me, that's like, really? That's all you get? And then the other thing is if that, but then is that really, like, can you still get what you need, like you were discussing, like talking about, like, get what you need and showing up as yourself throughout your day if you choose that as being important?
Can you do, where's the question? Sorry.
The question is, I feel like how can we get rid of that lack mentality in women that they just going to get their little half hour? I mean, don't they deserve to have the whole day? Even if they have kids and a husband, don't they deserve to be themselves and do for themselves throughout the day?
Yes, absolutely. And we have centuries of conditioning that go in the other direction from that. So we're going against, centuries of evolution that told us we had to put the family first and we have to put ourselves last. And we're coming into a time, I think, where it's much more possible for many of us to be on the same playing field. And I'm not just talking about wealthy people. I think people of all classes can advocate for themselves more strongly and ask for more support. You just might need to get more creative with it. And in fact, I think if you look at more communal village type living, they have it down. I mean, the whole, it takes a village to raise a kid. Like people share the child rearing, people share, you're out of sugar, you go to your neighbor to get the sugar. Like, I think part of this epidemic of disconnection and overwork on the part of women at the moment in more developed societies is a result of having lost the more communal and resource sharing kind of environment that really served us a long time ago. So I think that part of this epidemic of overwork and exhaustion and disconnection is happening because we live in a society that's very insular, like very single family oriented. And we also live in a society that values production and achievement and doing over beingness, over receiving. This is what I see a lot in my clients, is their muscle of receiving is very underdeveloped, but their muscle of doing is hyper developed. And so part of what really smooths things and improves relationships is when you become a really elegant and gracious receiver.
That's where I want to go, because I have clients also who are like, those 20 years I sacrificed myself for what?
Right.
I put my writing on hold. I put my life on hold for what?
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. You bring me so perfectly to step two. Thanks
Yeah.
for teeing that up so
Yeah.
gorgeously, because step two is to check your complaints. Notice what you habitually complain about. And instead of just lobbing the complaint, either talking to a friend about your crappy partner or talking to your crappy partner directly about it, pause for a second and ask yourself, what is it that I want that's underneath this complaint? Because every complaint is a veiled desire. So, if it's like, oh, he's on his phone, I'm saying he, but I mean he, she,
Yeah.
I work with non-binary, queer, straight folks. So forgive me for saying he, just for expediency here. Oh, he's on the phone all the time. Like, I don't want, and so you complain, right? Like, oh, why are you on the phone all the time? I don't like that, right? It would be so much more effective if you took a minute and asked yourself, okay, what bothers me about him being on the phone all the time? Oh, well, it feels like he's not paying attention to me, like his attention's divided, right, and that he's not really interested in me. Okay, then ask for attention directly. That's the thing you want. Don't push him away with the complaint. He's certainly not going to want to give you more attention if all you do is bitch about the phone. So instead, do the vulnerable, scary thing and ask for what you want. We're back to step one. So check your complaints, because those will also help you discern what you want. And then what you say is, hey, would you put your phone down while we're eating dinner? Because I'd love to have your undivided attention. Mm-hmm. Isn't that just so much hotter? I mean, like, my body just relaxed when I said that. I don't know about y'all, but right? It's just so much more inviting. And can I just say step three real quick before we keep going? Or is there something you want to go deeper on complaints about?
Well, it feels like that is very inviting, but that's not how we were taught or modeled.
No, we don't have models for this. I mean, what I'm talking about is revolutionary. Mm-hmm. This is not how my family worked, at all. My family worked with stonewalling and criticism and passive aggressiveness and all the things. I've had to learn this. I've trained really hard to be an amazing partner. This is, we train for our work. We go to school for years, but none of us few of us like me go to school for how to learn relationships well. Mm-hmm. And this is why I'm so passionate about teaching these skills, because so much of our unhappiness in relationship is preventable if we just knew how to show up differently. So the third piece is around coming from the assumption, like the a priori assumption, that you're on the same team. Because many of us in relationship come from a position of combativeness, like, I have to fight to be heard. Like, maybe we weren't listened to in our family of origin very much, and so we had to fight to be heard in our family. And then we come into our relationships with that idea, or we come into the relationship with the fear that I don't matter or I'm invisible. And so anytime that your partner does something slightly submissive, it falls into this deep well of invisibility and suffering around not mattering. And so then you're often running into a fight or flight kind of state. Mm-hmm. So if you come from the assumption, and this is something I really had to practice, when you come from the assumption that you're on the same team, you approach any conflict you're in so much differently, because you can look for the creative solution that serves the relationship instead of getting polarized into my way or my way. Mm-hmm. And I like to have my clients name their teams. Like, Patrick and my team name is Team Love Bomb. So we'll be arguing, and one of us will stop and we'll just be like, hey, Team Love Bomb. Like, if we were going to look at this from the perspective of Team Love Bomb, how would we approach the situation differently? And then let's the creative solution emerge from either him or me or both of us, some blend of the two. But we find the solution that serves the situation instead of fighting to the death to win. Does that make sense?
Yes, because I always look at all relationships. Yes, how can we create a win-win here?
Exactly. It's another way of creating a win-win.
How can we both come out of here, not with everything, necessarily, but let's create win-wins that we can come closer together in our in moving forward together, right?
Amen.
You might not get everything you want, but you might get the thing you need. Is that a Rolling Stones song?
But it's such a deep truth, right?
Yeah, it might. You're right. Might not get the thing you want, but they get the thing that you need, and that
Yeah.
need is really could be played out when you decide that you want to create a win-win. And I'm always,
Yeah.
I'm always baffled. I'm always like curious about being in a relationship where you feel like the person you're with is your enemy almost. Like you can't trust them. You can't trust them with your thoughts, your feelings, your hopes, your desire. And I'm like, how do you operate in this? I mean, I've been there before.
Yeah. I mean, sadly, it's a norm for so many people. And I think, I mean, there's a difference between a relationship having lost trust because some boundary was trespassed, right? So there's a difference between that and just being mistrustful from the start. And if there is a tendency to be mistrustful or to assume that you have to fight for your position, I invite you to look inside and see where that comes from. Because chances are it comes from something in your history that you haven't resolved yet. And that's okay. Like everything I'm saying is not about shaming yourself for how you feel. It's about expanding your awareness. It's about understanding, oh my God, one of my clients this week just had this revelation that, I mean, I almost cried. It made me so happy. She saw that she tended to work everything out herself. She would think through every possibility and present like a fait accompli, like a done thing to her husband, like, this is how we should do it. And I said, that's fascinating. Like, can you see how you're robbing him of the opportunity to contribute to you by working it all out? She's like, yeah, but I have to prove that I'm competent. She's got 2 small kids and she left her high-powered job. And so she has a little bit of insecurity going on, right? So she, she's like, but I have to prove that like I can. And I'm like, that's great. What's that about? So we went down there a little bit. And then through the conversation where we came to, she said to me, oh my God, when I do that, I'm making him feel the way I don't want to feel. I'm making him feel dumb. I'm making him feel incompetent and that I don't value his opinion and I don't, trust him to have a solution. Oh my God, like that thing I don't want to feel, I'm putting over there. And I was like, da da da, like, yes, it's so
That's
beautiful.
it.
And now that you can see that,
Right,
you can start to own that need to feel competent and notice when it's happening, build a little pause in, and instead of bringing him a completed thing, why not bring him 2 options? Like, hey, I've been thinking about this thing we should do, and I have a couple of options that I think would be great. What do you think? Which one do you like better? And in that way, he's invited to contribute. He feels like you care about what he thinks, and it's a win-win for both of you.
And I'm just thinking because I have a client that was also doing journaling. So yeah, same thing, journaling about it, but not taking it to him. And I've done it. I go, and I'm sure you can relate. You take a dance class.
Totally.
You take a dance class, take a yoga class. You go out with your friends. You're like, hey, I worked through it. I feel good. And your partner's standing there going,
what happened? Where are you?
Where am I really?
Yeah.
Where am I? How is this a relationship? How is this a partnership?
Yeah. Oh, I hear that. Especially I tend to work with pretty sort of type A, I'm fairly type A. I'm a very high powered person and I went to like all the best schools and I did all the things, 2 master degrees, blah, blah, blah. And so it's really can be very humbling to show people our less than perfect side. But as Brene Brown says, I'm going to bastardize the quote, but she says something like, the thing that we most want to hide about ourselves is the thing that actually makes people feel the closest to us. Like it's the thing that people most want to know. It's so powerful to reveal your vulnerability to someone, because it's such a deep way to connect. And I don't mean collapse into incapacity. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about sharing your vulnerable. That's how Patrick and I fell in love. I mean, we were in a personal growth community, and we weren't a couple, but we were researching various aspects of relationship together. And we did a 7-day research around saying the actual thing instead of trying to pad it and make it beautiful and perfect and all. And as we went through the week of just saying the thing, I noticed that the things I wanted to hide were really where my little one felt vulnerable, like, oh, I missed you and I wanted to see you today, or whatever, that I would drop dead before I'd admit to a man, right? And he held that so beautifully that it made me feel safe and open to him. And he wanted to hide that he still had feelings for his ex-girlfriend, but he would say it. And I held that so beautifully, because he had a story about, like, you should never talk about your ex to somebody, you know. And I held it so graciously and beautifully that he started to feel safe. And after a couple of months of practicing different things together as research partners, we actually fell in love, and we've been together over 5 years, and our relationship is amazing. So it's really about vulnerability.
So you're talking about being safe. So I'm going to assume that safety is a big component of having successful relationships.
Well, it's a dance, I think, right? Because if you err too much on the side of safety, it can get boring. It depends on your makeup. I love novelty. I'm a person who really thrives on novelty and adventure. And so there needs to be enough of a baseline of safety so that you can let your hair down. But if there isn't a little spark of mystery or a little spark of surprise, you know, it's easy to get bored. But I think each of us is wired differently. And that's what each of us has to figure out.
Right.
How much safety do I need? How much adventure or mystery or not knowing or danger do I need to feel turned on? What is the right mix for me? And then go out and get that. Like, go out and create that ideal mix for you.
So how are we doing? How are women doing out there?
I see there's some comments. I don't have the comments up right now just because I don't want to be distracted, but
Yeah.
I'll take a peek and see if there's anything.
Yeah, so I see it, but how in your practice, like, how are we doing? Are women doing better? Where's like
I see. I thought you were doing like an audience check.
We're gonna bring this in later.
Oh, okay. Yeah. How are we doing? You know, I feel like we are in this really potent time where we still have one foot in the old world, and some of us are poking a toe into the new world. Some of us have our whole feet. Some of us are like inching our second foot into the new world. Like, we're at this incredibly powerful precipice of new understanding and new ways of relating to one another. And if we put aside the challenge and pain and very real negative impacts of being in a pandemic for the past year, and the way that's impacted finances and, you know, our home life and all of that, if we just set that aside for a moment, consider the power of everything having been upended in your routine. What a potent time this is to ask yourself, was that really working for me? Is there anything about this new way that is working for me that I want to carry forward? I hear over and over again from women who are like, oh my God, I was on the rat race and it was like, I didn't know how to stop and life stopped me. And is it okay to say this? I'm kind of glad, right? There's like a shame in admitting that it's been good to slow down, even as it's been hard, right? And so I never want to negate how hard it's been, but I invite you to consider, is there anything about this? Well, you know, for me, it's a relief I always work through Zoom with my clients. So my work life hasn't changed much, but I love not having to run around LA for networking meetings. Like, that is a boom. I would rather stay home and not get stuck in traffic any day of the week. And I get to be so much more connected with my entrepreneur sisters all over the planet now than I was before. Like, that's kind of cool. Clubhouse, kind of cool. Like, there are some new things that have come out in this time that are good. So I see a real mix here in my practice of women who are kind of disoriented and like, I don't, part of them wants to cling to the old way, but they've been broken open, and there's a willingness to do things differently now that I find really potent and exciting. And more women are embracing that.
Yeah, and I'm excited for that new. I love this concept of that new world, and I love the thought. I'm a big proponent of bringing your man with you in this like including men and having this change in you that really invites men to really open up and be more.
Yeah.
Oh God, keep speaking to that. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I mean, and again, this is part of the silver lining, as it were, of a lot of our roles being upended over the past year. I've had clients who have become the primary breadwinner because their husband lost a job, and now he's taking care of the kids, and they're loving it, right? I mean, he might be struggling a little bit, has to get used to the idea because maybe he derived his identity from his work, and now there's a bit to unpack there. But I think the potential for collaboration with our partners and for really asking what our right role is, regardless of what society says, but just, I posit that there were a number of men working a job they hated because they're dutiful and providing type creatures,
right,
who are honorable and want to be there for their family, who were dying inside. And this time is a chance for them to really evaluate and within the partnership, find the right role for both people in a new collaborative way. I think it's part of what's possible now. That wasn't possible before because people were just kind of doing the rote thing, except for the few outliers who are already kind of on this trip,
Right. Yeah, I love that. I love the thought of that and the possibility in that. And it's exciting. It's exciting. I think it's exciting.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful moment.
It is. I've worked with, I primarily work with women, but the men I've worked with have just been, just such beautiful hearts. I think we don't spend enough time acknowledging the nobility of heart, of the healthy masculine. We spend a lot of time focusing on the toxic shit around the masculine. Excuse me for my language. Okay. I'm from New York. It happens. Yeah, but, we don't spend enough time acknowledging the nobility of heart and our power to call that out of a man.
Yes.
Because we have that power.
Yes,
and we don't use it enough for good, in my opinion.
I agree with you. And not only that came from being with someone, that having that experience. Before that, I never had that experience of like that relationship of just non-judgment. It's like it was so beautiful because then both people could flourish.
Yes.
Both people could live in their own thoughts and paths, and and still we come together. Yeah,
there's such beauty. I mean, you just described an adult relationship, really, where the purpose of the relationship is for each person's individual growth. And how do you come together to serve each other, yourself and the other's growth? How do you support one another? And it really flourishes in that. I love that you brought in non-judgment, because it really flourishes in that kind of environment, where you don't have to look over your shoulder all the time because you're afraid you're going to be criticized, but where you can actually bring to each other different things you're thinking of trying or what's happening. I mean, this morning I was crying about something and Patrick just like dropped everything and was present with me, you know, and then I cried it out and I kept moving and he kept moving, but it was just so beautiful that he was just present to what I needed. I was going to push through and keep going. He was like, I think you need to take a minute and just pause. And I was like, bah! You know, and then it moved through.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's just so much beauty possible between us if we learn to invite it and show up in such a way that it's a given.
Yeah. So I know you have a free gift for our audience, a quiz.
Yes,
So
I have
put that in the chat box.
You got the chat? Okay, great. Yeah, so I have a quiz called What's Your Relationship Style? And I've identified 4 stages of consciousness that folks tend to be in around relationship with themselves, with others, with life. And I call that 4-stage continuum the alchemy continuum. And it really has to do with how well do you alchemize challenges, what's not, what you don't like about yourself, what's difficult for you with other people, how well do you alchemize those things, and how much agency and power do you have? So depending on how that's all operating in there, you can be in any stage of the continuum at any time. Like you might be super able to alchemize things in your work, but it's harder to alchemize in your relationship. You might get knocked down there a little more, right? So we all have different areas of growth where we are further ahead and further back. So this quiz helps you assess what your dominant stage is. And with the follow-up emails, you get to see what you need to focus on and expand in order to grow into the next stage. So it really gives you a great framework for how to grow in your relationship with yourself and others, how to have more happiness and joy and fulfillment and love and fun and play. Because once you get to the alchemy end of the continuum, life really becomes a lot more playful. You have a lot more spaciousness and freedom. So I invite you to take that quiz at relationshipalchemyquiz.com.
Great. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have Kat come in and introduce herself, and then we're going to, we'll get to that, Maureen, we'll get to that on the round table also.